Alright guys, welcome back to the shop. Today we're building a new mount for my new winch. And me being the cheap bargain hunter I am, picked up a used winch off Facebook Marketplace. It does work, at least it spools in and out. No idea if it's, if there's anything broken or anything, but it didn't make any gravelly, crunchy noises, so we're probably in the win. And I am probably sometime in the very near future going to replace this cable with a modern synthetic rope. But yeah, so I paid, I think, $250 for it, which I hope was a good deal. For what it is, it's pretty good. Basically, I paid cheap Harbor Freight prices for a name brand. This one's a older mile marker. Guy said it's about 8 years old, and he threw in a new remote. But you can't just stick a winch on a car. They don't just fit, so you've got to do something. And some of you may know that I put a front trailer receiver hitch on the Blazer behind the license plate. The plan for that was to get one of these. So instead of bolting up a bumper or making a new bumper and having this on full time, so some of you guys might know I put a receiver tube trailer hitch mount in the front of the Blazer behind the license plate. The reason for that is that I can stick the winch on a cradle, plug it in when I'm needing it, and take it out when I don't need it. That way it's not out in the elements, no one can mess with it, and is nice and discreet. Keeps the stock look of the truck. The other benefit is that I can run a cable to the back, and I can take the winch out and I can stick it on the back of the truck if I ever need to pull anything from behind. Or if I, nose down a ditch, I can easily pull myself out from the back. So, there's a little bit more than just the winch cradle. You also really need a good battery for this, and I asked the people over at Holley, and they do not want me running a winch off the same battery as the Holley Sniper fuel injection that I'm running, which makes sense, and it's kind of what I was thinking. But what I'm actually gonna do is run a dual battery setup with a kind of disconnect, whatever they call it. Basically a little charging module that will let me charge the secondary battery, and I can also use that for auxiliary lighting or running an inverter or running a, running a compressor, which I'm thinking about doing. So that's what I'm going to do for the power side. And then in addition to that, I could go out and spend $70 on a winch cradle. It'll mount, I can mount the winch up to it, plug it in the hole, and be good. But me being me, of course I'm not going to spend $70. I'm going to use some scrap steel I have laying around and, several hours worth of my time. So come out ahead in money, but way down in labor. Either way, it's fun, it's a hobby, it's a project, so let's go. Alright, so we're going to start with a piece of square tubing. Unfortunately, I didn't actually have the correct square tubing. I did have some, but it was 1/8 inch, and so I decided to make my own. So this is actually two pieces of 1x2 that I welded together. They're both 1/8 inch, but because I've got all the extra walls, it's functionally the same as doing a 1/4 inch, or that's what I'm going to tell myself. But this right here, smooth it down, plug in like so. I'll figure out the right distance at some point. Then I'm going to take this plate, stick it on there like so, and then that should be my base. So the winch will mount right up there, and then once I'm happy with the location of that, I'm going to run some braces for this. Alright, there we go. Just got some quick welds on there. Drilled some holes out. I missed right there. These are supposed to be 4.5 inches apart, and I accidentally drilled the first set 4. Put the double hole that's a little bit weaker on the front side, because the rear one is the one that's going to take the biggest load. So yeah, let's stick it on and kind of see how it looks. Alright. There we go. I kind of wanted it to stick in a little bit deeper, but we'll double check. I'm pretty sure I've got good insertion. Just to double check, I'm going to grab a scribe and mark to see where that is. But next thing I'm going to do, we need to build up the front bit for a fair lead, and then I'll probably add some handles to this because all the other ones have handles. That will make it nicer to get on and off. But before I do any of that, we need a way of powering this. So I'm going to have to make a battery tray. And there is my second battery tray. If you haven't seen this already, I did just put out a video on welding this up and kind of fabricating it from scratch. So check that out. If not, you can certainly buy a brand new one from LMC Truck. Not quite as unique as this, but you can buy a dual battery kit for these trucks. Alright, hey guys, it's a couple days later and I've got some goodies in the mail. So first thing we got is going to be our fair lead. So this is an aluminum hostile fair lead. That'll go right there. Now we've got to add some bracketry for that. Some of you might realize this is a steel cable, and steel cables don't play well with aluminum fair leads. And you'd be right. Because in box number 2, I have cheap internet synthetic rope. So, synthetic rope to go with the hostile fair lead. Get rid of the steel cable. And then on top of that, I have a battery isolator. So this is a battery isolator kit, so I can keep the second battery isolated from the first one. Downside is I saw it said it came with 7-gauge wire. I forgot how skinny that is, and this is some pretty thin stuff, because this is ideally what we'd use to connect the batteries together for charging. And I looked at some charts, and for the distance we're going, which is probably about 4 feet, this is like just barely good enough for that. This is probably better for like 20 amp, like 50 amp charging, whereas my alternator will put out somewhere around 100 amps. So kind of wary about that. I might get a different one. The actual, isolator itself seems nice. It does have a little screen on it, which is kind of cool, tell you the voltages. It does claim to be good for 140 amps, and if you open up the back of it, everything is kind of potted in this kind of sticky rubbery goo. Well, not really sticky, but it's squishy. So some sort of silicone. Pretty cool. So I might use this. I might exchange it for something a little bit nicer. But that is for later. First thing we're going to do is basically deal with this. The other thing I also got the other day are some quick disconnects, because this guy has ring terminals on it, which is great, but I don't plan on leaving this permanently on. So I've got some covers. Got some quick disconnects so that basically one will go on the winch side, the other will go on the truck side. You smush them together, you're connected, you pull them off, I can go put this wherever I want. And then I'll just leave one of these on the truck, screwed into something, and have the nice little cover over it to protect it. And so I was looking for what I was going to use to mount this, because obviously I need some plates. The only thing I had kicking around was this piece of C-channel, which is just about right. It actually, if I drill the hole in the middle, it actually keeps the nut captive, so that works out. So I cut two sections off that are about 2 3/4 inch long, because that's about the total width of this. So now basically all I got to do is drill some holes, weld that on right there, and then I can bolt this guy on. Then what we're going to do is take some angle iron, kind of build up a little bit more of this on the front and on the back, and then we can make our removable handles. They're going to go right here. That way I can, you know, transport this a little easier than picking up the winch itself. So all of the other things I've seen have little handles, so I'm going to make some little handles. Super sorry, but I kind of skipped a couple steps here. I just started welding and adding parts to this. The neighbor was blasting music and I couldn't really record, and I was just kind of in a zone. But basically I welded those two little bits of C-channel on to mount the fair lead, and then I just kind of kept adding other plate to frame everything out, and then built some handles and ran a tap and drilled and tapped some holes. So sorry for the jump, but you guys don't really necessarily need to see that. But again, sorry that you didn't. The welding's been done. I basically just added these bits of angle iron to the edges, added a nice thick piece to the back. It's like 3/16. Added some plate down at the bottom, cut and beveled that, and then I made these guys. So these are some more of that 3/16 plate, drilled and tapped it to 1/4 28. The only 1/4 28 fasteners I could find were these stainless ones, so when it's time to run them in, I'm going to make sure I use copious amounts of Loctite or anti-seize. That's had some 1-inch round tubing, welded it all together, ground it down kind of ugly, and obviously stitched that in there as well as on the back side. Played with the TIG welder there and there, and then that's kind of about it. But yeah, so now it's basically just time to take a little flap disc to it, clean it up a little bit, smooth out some of these edges, and then we're going to hit it with some paint. Alright, there we go. Got some paint on it. Just got to throw the winch back on, stick the handles and the fair lead on, and we are ready to go. Alright, there we go. Got the winch on, handles on, stuck the fair lead on. Didn't put the cable through it because I need to unspool the cable and I didn't want to damage the aluminum fair lead. So next step is really just to get rid of that and replace it with that over there. That's my new winch rope. And if you're gonna use stainless like I did, well, I was kind of forced to, but if you're gonna use it, make sure you use some anti-seize, because you don't want to deal with those galling up and snapping off. But yeah, just gotta stick it on, unspool, and put my new rope on. Also off camera I did cut my hole through there. This is just a little bit bigger than 5/8. Used a 5/8 drill bit and then just kind of wallowed it out a little bit. But my hitch pin fits, and I already checked it does fit on the truck. Well, the day got away from me. I had some other projects, so I'm actually winding this up now. All right. Winch spooled up with, I can't remember, it's either 80 or 100 feet of synthetic rope. So really all I gotta do now is properly wire up the battery, because that deep cycle I have is not in the best shape, so I actually have this connected to the deep cycle and then jumper cables going to the main battery. Let that Optima do the heavy lifting right now. So I'll probably swap out that deep cycle for one that's a little more fresh, and then basically I've got to make my connectors, so I'm going to leave that plugged in. I'll probably hide the connector somewhere under the bumper, somewhere nice and out of the way, or potentially even maybe in the grill, but probably under the bumper attached to the trailer hitch that I built up front. So we've got it all wired in. Got a battery lug right here with the dual terminal battery. Don't need a dual terminal, but my battery lug going up over here to a fuse. That way I don't burn anything down. Then I go follow that to my on-off switch. This will keep the battery isolated, like completely isolated, when I'm not driving the truck all that much. Then we go to the actual battery isolator. This is kind of an active unit. There's an input and an output and then a ground wire for reference. Then we move along and we get to the battery. So we've got our input to the battery. That's going to charge up the battery while I'm driving, as long as the alternator's turning. Then when it's time to use the winch, I've got these two heavy cables that came with the winch. So those cables come down through a grommet to this connector. That way I can do a quick disconnect of the winch. And I haven't fully mounted this, but I'll probably just tuck it out of the way because there's not too much slack on these cables. And then we've got our winch. So that's going to be it for today. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.